All right, for today's briefing, we're going to be going over the severe weather potential for mainly today, and then I'm also going to touch on tomorrow and Monday. So we are expecting scattered thunderstorms to develop this afternoon and evening across a good portion of our area. The expected hazards today are very large hail, which is hail 2 inches or greater, damaging winds, and we also have the potential for isolated tornadoes. We have an additional threat for isolated strong to severe storms tomorrow afternoon and into the early overnight hours. This area should be a little bit more confined than today's storms, and it should mainly be in the Big Country and Northern Heartland areas. And then once again, the expected hazards, we have all three: large to very large hail, damaging winds, and isolated tornadoes. So looking at today's outlook, we do have an enhanced clipping a small portion of our area in Brown County. And then we have that slight extending into the Concho Valley and the Big Country, and then that sliver of marginal over there. So the highest chances for any severe storms will be in our eastern counties, but the westward extent of these storms is where we have the highest uncertainty. We are expecting the storms to form along the dry line this afternoon. And the models just don't have a super great handle on where exactly that dry line is going to set up by the time that storms start initiating. So if we can get a slightly more westward extent of the dry line this afternoon, San Angelo and Abilene will have a better chance of seeing these severe storms. However, if the initiation holds off a little bit and the dry line can progress a little bit further eastward, it could be a mainly dry afternoon for San Angelo and Abilene. But those eastern counties, especially in the heartland, have the highest chances of seeing storms this afternoon. And I will say this is also dependent on cloud cover today. We do have some high cloud cover over the area. If that can stick around a little bit longer, that could hinder storm development in those areas. However, if we do see clearing soon and we get that heating at the surface, we will have better chances of seeing that very large hail in those supercells. So looking at our threats today, the main threat is going to be the very large hail. You can see over on the right, we have the hail over here. A good portion of our area is hatched, which means we have a greater than 10% probability of seeing that significant hail, which is greater than 2 inches in diameter. But you will see we have that 5 to 9% of tornado reaching into some of our counties on the east. And then we do have a chance of damaging winds here as well. So looking at the timing is a little bit messy. It does depend on exactly, when those storms can get started with the high cloud cover and then the progression of the dry line and everything like that. I don't know exactly where this timing will happen as well, but the earliest timing should be around 1, but most likely starting around 3, continuing into the evening and ending likely by 10 or a little earlier for our easternmost counties. The storms will start in our western or central counties and then progress eastward over a few hours. So looking at Sunday, we do once again have a slight risk in a portion of the area, mainly in the Big Country and Northern Heartland, with a marginal across the rest of the area. We are expecting these to be a little bit later, maybe in the late afternoon to early overnight hours. Once again, these are expected to form along the dry line, so it is heavily dependent on, how far it moves east and west overnight and then back into the afternoon. But yep, all three severe hazards are possible with these storms tomorrow as well. And then looking at Monday, we obviously have more uncertainty with this as it is further out, but then also it is going to be a much smaller portion of our area. You can see we're just clipped by the slight risk on our easternmost counties. And the dry line is expected to push further east that day, as you can see by this outlook. So our eastern counties may be clipped, but it could also be just to the east of us. So that is something that we're going to be watching for. And then also the timing is still uncertain as well. But if we do get storms, the main hazard will probably be large hail, and we could also see some damaging winds with that as well. Here's a reminder of our area. Our next briefing will be our typical Monday briefing. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to contact the office with any of this contact information here. Have a good weekend.